Welcome to Fantasy Fire and Ice. I am your host, Chris Torres. You can find me on Twitter at Torres Takes. I will be guiding you here through a four-game MLB playoff slate. Listen, Terrell last week was like, I can't wait. I can't wait. I thought the season would be over already. Well, it's not over because we got the playoffs. Listen, the strategy around DFS when you've got these smaller slates, it's going to change, right? So we're not dealing usually on Tuesdays we've got these slates of 12, 13 games. We've got a lot of options to choose from in those scenarios, right? Today we only got four games, eight teams to choose from here. So let's get into it. We could get a little bit more granular looking at some of the underlying stats, obviously, now that we have less players to choose from. So big picture, let's take a look here. So we've got some big name pitchers up top. Not surprisingly, with the playoffs starting, you're going to get the best pitchers usually, especially in game one. So we've got guys like Tyler Glasnow, Kevin Gausman, Zach Wheeler, legit aces. And we've got some really low totals for these games. All of them are, right around 7.5, 8. So we're going to really have to dig deep to find some of these bats that can provide some value, right? But let's start, as we always do, with the pitchers. All right, so up top, the most expensive option on this slate is Kevin Gausman at 9,800 on DraftKings. Now, not surprisingly, given the quality of pitcher, and just the context of the slate, he's going to be pretty popular. 41% ownership projected by the Contrarian Edge Optimizer on DraftKings. So, I mean, I can't fault anybody for going with Kevin Gausman. He is a legit ace, as I said. He's going to give you, he's hovering around a 30% strikeout rate, going up against a Minnesota team that we know has a propensity for striking out. Minnesota, I will say, is hitting the ball a little bit better lately. In terms of WRC plus over the past 2 weeks here, they're at 128 with a 200 isolated slugging. So the Twins are not a slouch. All right. I do like there are guys that we'll discuss in a little bit, like Edouard Julien, Max Kepler, Matt Wallner. Like they've got some guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. So, I mean, is it a great matchup for Gausman? I wouldn't say it is, but I think, just given the quality of the pitcher he is, the fact that he's at home for this start, I totally understand why people would be looking towards him to, put in as their SP1 for this slate. Moving on to the next, the highest price option is Tyler Glasnow for the Rays. So actually the optimizer has him as the most popular option on DraftKings, not by a lot, but they have him around 50% projected ownership, going up against a Texas team here that, they've been very streaky. Like there have been times this season where they've looked like the best lineup in baseball. And then there have been times where they've gone completely cold. So it's hard to say what we're going to get from this lineup. But, I mean, Glasnow is he's not someone that I really want to go up against. Over his past 5 starts, he's got a near 40% strikeout rate. I mean, that is just otherworldly. That's like in, the top, I believe, top 3 in baseball over that time. So a 2.78 Sierra. I can definitely, again, just like with Gausman, I can understand you backing Tyler Glasnow in this situation. Let's see, I'm just curious, Texas's recent performance. Okay, so they're at a 108 WRC plus with a 211 isolated slugging. So they're on a little bit of an upswing. I wouldn't say they're like the hottest team in baseball, but this is a really good lineup. Another factor to consider with Glasnow, though, is just the length that he's going to give you. The Rays, especially in the playoffs, are going to be focused on playing matchups. So I don't think they're going to allow Glasnow to go super deep into this game. I would put the over/under at about 5, maybe 6 innings would be pushing it for Glasnow. So that's one thing that you have to consider. Where, as with some of the other pitchers on the slate, like a Gausman, I could see them going deeper into the game. But honestly, for me, just considering the quality of the pitcher, again, the fact that he's at home, I'm putting Glasnow as my top option. Corbin Burnes at 8K is someone that we also have to discuss. He's too cheap. All right. He's going to be projected ownership is going to be at 48%, going up against an Arizona team that really has not been hitting the ball well lately. I will note that Arizona's not striking out over the last 30 days. He's only struck out. The team has only struck out, 19% of the time, which is super, super low. One of the lowest in baseball over that time period. So Corbin Burnes is someone that, he was someone we were drafting in the first round of fantasy drafts this season. A slight disappointment, I would say. But overall, when you look at the end of season numbers, kind of what you didn't lose your league because of Corbin Burnes. Let's put it that way. At 8K against this Diamondbacks team, I think he's too cheap. So ideally, I'm looking to my top 2 pitchers are going to be Glasnow and Burnes. I'm pretty much, looking at some of the other options here. I keep gravitating towards those 2. So let's quickly go through the other options. We've got Pablo Lopez on the road against the Blue Jays. He's going to be a very contrarian option because he is priced up near the top. His team is an underdog. He's on the road against a Blue Jays team that, while they haven't lived up to their reputation as one of the best hitting teams in baseball, I think people are still going to be scared off by them with Pablo Lopez going to Toronto for that matchup. So if you're going to get contrarian, I could understand you going with Pablo Lopez. Looking at his last 5 starts, he's actually got the lowest SIERA out of any of the starting pitchers on this slate at 2.63. So, again, this is a really, really good pitcher. I don't think you would be, way off by including him, especially if you're in like a larger field tournament where you've got to get a little different. I think Pablo Lopez does make sense in that build. For me personally, I'm probably going to go for, as far as contest selection, I'm going to be looking at more of the single entry contests. When we're with a slate this small, I don't really want to mess with, these 150 max tournaments. So, in that scenario, in that type of contest, in a single entry, I'm going to go with, I guess, a little bit of a safer option, again, with guys like Glasnow and Corbin Burnes. Looking at the other pitchers on the slate, you've got Jordan Montgomery going on the road against Tampa Bay. If you look at his past 6 starts, he's got a 4.46 SIERA. He's not someone that I'm looking towards on this slate. You look at the Rays lineup, they could go 9 right-handed hitters against Jordan Montgomery, which, that's concerning because Montgomery is definitely not as effective against righties. So if you could stack righties like the Rays can against him, he's just not someone that, for me, makes a lot of sense. Especially, he's not really a strikeout pitcher, and we're looking for strikeouts in DFS, especially on DraftKings. And just to give you some numbers here to back up what I said, Montgomery has a 4.20 xFIP against righties on the season. So very middling there. Not someone, especially at 7,100, just doesn't make sense to me. Again, if you want to get crazy, you want to get contrarian, I guess throw him in a lineup if you're building a lot of lineups. But to me, it just doesn't seem like a very smart play. Someone who is going to fly under the radar and is super, super cheap is Brandon Pfaadt. 5,300 on DraftKings today. Now, people are gonna look at the line for this game. They're gonna see the Brewers as heavy favorites. Brandon Pfaadt on the road, a rookie, going in game 1 of the playoffs is obviously, it's not a great spot for Brandon Pfaadt. But just to throw it out there, and I'm not saying I'm playing him, but I do find it interesting that Brandon Pfaadt seems to have found something in his recent starts. his past 4 starts, I watched this game against the Yankees a couple starts ago, and I was blown away at how good he looked because he started out really struggling this season. And not to be unexpected, right? For a rookie pitcher to struggle out of the gate. But he's really turned a corner. And looking at his underlying stats, he's got a 31% strikeout percentage over his past 4 starts with only a 3.5% walk percentage. Now, when we're talking a K minus walk rate of 27%, that's elite, right? That's reserved for the elite starters in this league. I don't know if that strikeout rate is necessarily, maybe that's just small sample noise, but we do know with Brandon Pfaadt that he's got very good control. So, 4% walk rate, is that sustainable? Probably not, but I do think that it's not that far off from his true talent. And his Sierra over those starts is 3.04, which would qualify as third best on this slate. So, Brandon Pfaadt is someone that, again, depending on the contest that you're in, if you're entering a lot of lineups, I think it makes sense to get exposure to Brandon Pfaadt. I mean, the Brewers are not a bad lineup, but they're not elite by any means. So could I see Brandon Pfaadt going out there and giving you 5 innings of, 1 or 2 runs and 7 strikeouts? I could see that. And at that price and what I anticipate his ownership is going to be, that is going to give you some good leverage over the field. So I don't think he's the worst play on this slate. Just real quickly, Zach Wheeler, let me look up his price here. He is 8,600 on DraftKings, projected at 42.5 ownership percentage. I think it's close between him and some of these other guys. I think you really have to nitpick to be down on Zach Wheeler against this Marlins lineup that is pretty right-handed heavy, and Wheeler is elite against right-handers. Just pulling up he's got like I wrote it down somewhere, a 2.79 xFIP allowed against righties on the season. And the Marlins, really the only left-hander that you're scared of in that lineup is Jazz Chisholm, right? Luis Arias is a good hitter, obviously. We don't even know what his status is, though, today. Check the lineups because he's been dealing with an ankle injury. So, man, Arias isn't in there, and they have to put, like, John Birdie up against Wheeler. Then I think Wheeler is definitely more in play. But I can't say he's a bad play at his price. Am I missing anybody? I'm trying to toggle between all these screens here. We went through Gals, and Jesus Luzardo was the last one that we didn't cover. 6,800 on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm just not going there. I mean, I think Luzardo, he's projected 18% ownership on this slate. He can get you some strikeouts, but really not in the best form recently. On the road against a Phillies lineup that can get right-handed heavy. I'm just not super confident. His first playoff start, a 9% walk rate over his past 5 starts. He's okay, but I just don't love this spot. If he was at home, we'd be having a different conversation. But on the road in a good hitter's ballpark against a team that's got some good right-handed pop, I just don't see a reason to go there. I'd rather, if we're going to go cheap, I feel the better play would be to go with Brandon Pfaadt at 5,300. All right. So we covered the pitchers. Let's get into some hitting now. And let me just talk stacks first, kind of give a broader overview. I really like the Rays stack on this slate. I mentioned how I'm not a fan of Jordan Montgomery. The Rays can throw out 9 right-handed hitters at you. I think, if we're looking at who's most likely to be the highest scoring team on the slate, I think the Rays are right up there. Over the past 2 weeks, they have the highest WRC plus in baseball. And to boot, they've got some cheaper options that I think allows you to get to some of those higher price starting pitchers. The one option that I want to quickly go over, let's start with first base here. Let's start with catcher. What am I doing? Everybody's favorite position. So at catcher, one guy that I'm looking at going in line with what I'm talking about the Rays is Christian Bethancourt. He's kind of a cheap punt play at $3K on DraftKings. He's not going to be super popular because he's hitting near the bottom of the lineup, but he's much better against left-handers. And just pulling up Christian Bethancourt's numbers here, he's got a 232 isolated slugging against lefties this year, which is well above average. I think there's a chance he could run into one here against Montgomery, and given the price and the context of the slate, I think he makes a lot of sense at 3K. One player at catcher who I think is going to get quite a bit of attention is William Contreras, because he's really the only catcher that we could project to hit near the top of the lineup. He's going to hit second against Brandon Pfaadt at 4,600 on DraftKings. I'd say he's probably going to check in at about 40% ownership. So anytime a hitter is that highly owned, I don't mind fading them. Listen, he's the best play, without a doubt, on the slate at the position. But, if you want to get some leverage on the field, I think it makes sense to look elsewhere. So that is kind of all I got on catcher. Moving to first base. So I mentioned, again, the Rays. Yandy Diaz is a high price option at 5,400. And if I'm not mistaken, he's the second most expensive option. And I think for that reason, people are going to kind of fade Yandy. His ownership, according to the optimizer, is only 5% today, or projected to be 5%. And I think Yandy is a good play because he's going to be a little bit contrarian. And, I'm also basing this, anybody who's watched this show knows that I like to look at recent form and, what a hitter has done recently, because I do think there's something predictive about that. And looking at Yandy's recent form, I mean, everything looks good under the hood here. Hard hit percentage of 52%, not striking out. He's walking more than he strikes out. He's elevating the ball more than he typically does. Usually we're looking at Yandy at a plus 50% ground ball rate. He's below 50% over his past couple weeks here. So I do like him. If you believe the Rays are a good play, if you're going to stack the Rays, I think it makes sense to go with Yandy Diaz, especially because he's not going to be super popular. I think people, if they're going to play Rays, they're going to gravitate towards more of these lower price plays. And that's why I think it could help you to go a little contrarian, especially he's going to hit leadoff, right? So if the Rays go off, a good chance that Yandy is going to produce. One other player at first base that I do want to mention is Bryce Harper. All right, Bryce Harper is going to be, I think, a little bit overlooked on this slate, going up against a lefty in Jesus Luzardo. He's priced at 5,800. And the thing with Bryce Harper is, you don't have to worry about the splits with him. A lot of players, we're going to look to have the platoon advantage. Bryce Harper is so damn good, it don't matter, right? And even against Jesus Luzardo, I feel good about Harper at that lower ownership. I think, again, he'll be overlooked. And let's remember, too, he's going to get at bats against the Marlins bullpen. It may not necessarily be against a left-hander. So I'm good with Bryce Harper if you want to go that route. Moving on to second base. Again, check the lineups. Luis Arias, I think, is a decent play there. Believe it or not, you don't think of Luis Arias as a home run hitter. He's got 5 home runs over the past 30 days here. So for Luis Arias, that is a lot. So he's in good form. Just check to make sure that he is in the lineup. But if you want to get leverage on the field, I think he makes sense at 4,500 at second base. Let's see, the most popular option, it looks like, is going to be Cavan Biggio. He's been hitting the ball well. Projected to bat 5th against Pablo Lopez. I'm probably not going there at that ownership, especially because not someone who you can necessarily count on for a home run. So, it makes sense just based on the price. If you need some salary relief, I think he makes sense. But probably, again, getting back to the Rays, if I want to save money, I'll look at Curtis Mead. Projected to bat 5th against Jordan Montgomery at 2,900 in that same price range, and he's projected for half of the ownership that Cavan Biggio is. Moving on to third base. We're not going to get into every player here, all right? We still don't have enough time for that, but just want to point out at each position some plays that maybe are going to be popular or who I think may be undervalued based on the price and ownership. Most popular option at third base, it looks like it's going to be Willie Castro for the Twins. He's projected to bat 5th. Against Kevin Gausman, honestly, I don't know. Like again, like it seems like a lot of these more popular plays, I'm not really behind. And at that ownership against a pitcher of the caliber of Kevin Gausman, I get it. Willie Castro is 3,400. He's super cheap. But again, I see it as another opportunity to get some leverage on the field by looking elsewhere. And I'm looking at Junior Caminero. That's my leverage. All right. At third base for the Rays, he's probably going to hit second against Jordan Montgomery. And Junior Caminero, for those of you who may be checked out of season-long baseball this season, maybe you kind of missed that. I mean, he's one of the top prospects in baseball. He's hit well over the past 2 weeks. He hasn't lit the world on fire. But I think the fact that he's batting second against a left-hander at 3,200, again, in a stack that I really like, I don't see, for me personally, it wouldn't make sense to go anywhere else. I'm going to roll with Junior Caminero there. I don't see anybody else that is super appealing to me. Alec Bohm, Josh Young, I'm not really feeling that. Matt Chapman stinks. I've got a lot of animosity towards him, because of the way that he performed this year for me on my season-long teams. So anyway, moving on to shortstop. We've got highest price option is Corey Seager by Corey Seager and Trey Turner are both way up there. Seager at 6,200 on DraftKings, Turner at 5,900. The highest projected ownership is going to be, it looks like, Willy Adames at 25%. I could see it against Brandon Pfaadt. I mentioned that I do like Pfaadt a little bit, but at that price, Adames is going to be hitting in the middle of the lineup. He can hit you a home run. And I'm not saying that there's a chance that Pfaadt just goes out there and craps the bed, right? So I think it definitely makes sense, especially there's no like cheap options at shortstop today that really excite me. So Adames gives you a little bit of differentiation that you're not going up top with either Seager or Turner. Bo Bichette, I guess, is also in play at 5K against Pablo Lopez, but I already mentioned how I feel about Pablo Lopez. He's damn good, so I'd rather for $600 less go up against a much lower caliber of pitcher in Brandon Pfaadt. And again, I mean, I'm not messing with Garrett Hampson, Kyle Farmer, Taylor Walls, Perdomo, like all these guys just they make me more nauseous than watching the Giants last night. I mean, God, that was ugly. But I'm still wearing my sweater though. I mean, I'm repping the Giants. You got to stick with your team through good and through bad. So you Giants, Jets fans out there, just keep the faith. Maybe we'll be good in another 10 years. All right, we'll finish up with outfield here. Christian Yelich is going to be the most popular option, most likely. Batting leadoff against Brandon Pfaadt. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. 4,900? What are we doing? I mean, DraftKings, come on. That's too low for given the context of the slate here. I think Yelich is kind of like an auto play. I mean, I know I don't like playing, high-owned players, but we're gonna get contrarian enough in other spots. I think that I'm cool with eating the chalk on Christian Yelich. Harold Ramirez is a nice option. Projected to bat third against Jordan Montgomery, 3,700. Now, to me, he's another one that's just kind of like an auto play. Going to be popular, but I'm rolling with the Rays. I'm all Rays. I should be wearing a Rays sweater today instead of a Giants sweater. I can't get away from that. I like the matchup, and he's hitting the ball hard lately. So, yeah, Harold Ramirez, lock him in. Manny Margot, also with the Rays against Jordan Montgomery. How many Rays can we play all 9 Rays? I know DraftKings changed the rules a few years ago for how many players you could have in a stack, but I'm going to advocate that they change that for today, and let's just get all Rays. Manny Margot at 3,300. He's actually, and I'm not a huge batter versus pitcher guy, but I can't overlook in 19 plate appearances against Jordan Montgomery, Manny Margot has 4 doubles and a home run for a cool 722 slugging percentage. So the other thing with Margot, not only does he have a good history against Jordan Montgomery, but He's hitting the ball really well lately. 383 WOBA since he came back off the IL over his last 44 plate appearances. He's always hit better against lefties. I think he makes sense. He'll be a little bit projected ownership on according to the optimizer is 20%. I'm cool with that. I'll definitely take Manny Margot at such a cheap price, and doesn't look like he's going to be. He'll be somewhat popular, but not overwhelmingly so. Just taking a quick scan here. Let's see. Josh Lowe. All right. Oh, maybe they do throw in Josh Lowe. Maybe that's the one lefty the Rays do throw in there. So, though they like to platoon, so he may not get the start. We'll see. Just check the lineups, see what happens there. But Josh Lowe is he's the one Ray I won't take today. I don't like him if he's in the lineup against a lefty. Jazz Chisholm, if you want some leverage over the field, only projected for a 3% ownership on the according to the optimizer against Zach Wheeler. Listen, if he goes deep, imagine you're looking at your live contests, and you don't have Zach Wheeler, and you did play Jazz Chisholm, and he hits a bomb. I mean, you're going to go from one spot, maybe you're towards the bottom. That'll jump you up like all the way near the top. Like that's going to give you such significant leverage in that spot. So listen, Jazz, we know the dude is he's elite. At 5,200, if you're playing multiple lineups, I think it makes sense to have exposure to him. Let's see, Randy Rosarena. Batting second at 5,500, you'll have to pay up for him. We can't play everybody from the Rays. I was kidding before, so I may not pay that price for him. So, listen, we got to get out of here in a minute. I hope everybody's season-long teams did well. Hope you had a strong finish to the season. Let's get after it with some of this playoff baseball here. Let's have some fun. We appreciate you watching. And just to plug a few things, the optimizer is such a great tool. Go to fantasysportslogic.com to get access to that. And I think we got a 7-day free trial going on, if I'm not mistaken. So just check it out. It's awesome. Also check us out at Sportstopia HQ on Twitter. We've got some great material coming out. We've got basketball coming up. We've obviously got football. So listen, check out all the great stuff that we have there. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Chris Torres. Best of luck to everybody.